Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk TLA. We are here welcoming our fall online course presenters, and we're going to talk with them and interview them about their class so that you can find out what they're teaching and whether or not that class might be right for you. So I'm so glad to welcome Yvette, Laura, Karen, and Angie here to talk about their classes. We're going to go around and do brief introductions, and then we're going to give everybody a chance to ask any questions of each presenter, and then we'll see where we'll go from there. So welcome. Let's see. Karen, would you like to go first, interviewing Angie about her class?
Sure, I would love to do that. We're very, very happy to have Angie River back. Angie has taught quite a few classes for the TLA network, and she always gets rave reviews and really kind of helps people find their best words, best images for guiding their life. And Angie, this is a class called Not Enough Spoons, Writing About Disability and Chronic Illness. So let me ask you just briefly first, why the title and what's the focus of the class?
Okay. Well, the title is based on the spoon theory, which is a way that a lot of folks who are sick or disabled kind of talk about illness and the way it impacts our lives. And it's readily available online if anyone wants to read the full thing. But the basic concept is that, you start out with X number of spoons. Say a healthy person starts out with 50 spoons. A sick person might start out their day with 15 or 20, and it takes more spoons to do things. And so it's just a way of explaining to people who maybe aren't familiar with what it's like to live with illness or disability, how difficult it can be to get through some of the basic things of the day. So a lot of people in the disability community will refer to themselves as spoonies, or talk about being out of spoons for the day or the like. So this class is named after that, and it really is working on doing writing around the idea of health and disability and illness, both physical and mental health, and kind of what it means to be in a sick body or mind, what it means to be in a healthy body or mind, and kind of processing those things through writing.
Okay, and could you say a little bit more about what participants would get out of this class, how it might, for example, enhance resilience or just kind of help them find something a little bit more to mitigate not always having enough spoons?
Sure. Yeah. I think me personally, as somebody who is sick and disabled, writing has always been a way for me to process things, and to be able to better understand things myself, and to better explain things to others. So what I really hope for this class for people who are taking it is for them to be able to do those things as well, to internally process maybe things that are difficult to do so, to be able to put into words things that they can explain to other people, because it's hard sometimes to do that, and poetic language especially is really helpful in explaining kind of the things our bodies, our minds do. And it's also a really great place to form community with either other people who are sick and disabled or allies if there are people who are not, that are taking the class and want to just learn more.
Okay, and I know you taught at one point a shortened version of this class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've also taught other classes that have to do with connecting with our senses and the season. And why don't you tell more about other things you've taught and what you bring to this, what your background is?
Okay. Well, as far as other things that I've taught for the TLA network, I've taught this class. I've taught 2 different classes about selfies and writing, using both writing and photography to explore ourselves and our identity. And then I taught a class about connecting with our bodies and nature through writing. As far as my background, I have a TLA certification degree from Goddard, and my work there was specifically around connecting with the body through writing and performance. And that's kind of what I do in my own life too. I currently am working, doing freelance teaching is my main form of work, and I do a lot of working on myself as somebody who is within the last couple of years become disabled. And so a lot of the things that we process in this class are things that I'm also processing myself personally. So I've really enjoyed teaching these classes and have had just some great people that I've worked with in the classes, great students. And I think the last time that I taught the shortened version of this, I had both folks who were sick and folks who were not, and who just had family members or were working in hospitals and that sort of thing. So I don't want the title of disability to be off-putting, that it's really open to anybody to kind of look at and think about and write about bodies and the ways our bodies move through the world, the way we process things in our mind, whether it's healthy or sick.
Thank you so much. And, I don't mean to kind of be a downer about it, but all of us are going to face disability, chronic illness, something of the like at some point in our lives as caregivers or as we age and change. And one thing I think is so wonderful about what you do is you bring in all kinds of artistic approaches. You give people tons of tools. And whether somebody's a healthcare provider with limited time or living with a disability or chronic illness that makes it hard to get out and go do specific classes, people can do this class any time of the day or night on their own. So
yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Kelly.
Thank you, Angie. Does Yvette or Laura, do either of you have any questions you want to ask Angie?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Yvette, Angie. I think what you're doing is wonderful. You know, I find that your work is really interesting, and especially reaching out to populations that really don't have an opportunity to express, what it's like being, in their bodies. I've always been a big fan of Nancy Marr's work and her essays, in which she talks about, being a person who is going through the journey of multiple MS, multiple sclerosis. Is that what she's going through? And so her essays have always been very meaningful and powerful for me. So I'm wondering, in the work that you do the writers end up not only using that as a space for writing about their experiences and expression, do they take their work further and look for ways to publish some of their work, to create essays or books or stories about their work?
I have had students in some of the other TLA classes I do definitely, look into taking things further. And I did have had a couple former students send me links of things that they have published. And, I think that just even sharing within the class, I always think that that's kind of a form of mini publication, I am a big fan of doing communal writing and community writing, so that's something that I incorporate into all of my classes, is where we write together. But yeah, I think that getting that out there is definitely important. And I have in the past sent out links to say, hey, here's some places you could consider contributing and that kind of thing. So that's definitely something that I think is important, especially in this community, like you're saying, that a lot of folks, myself included, don't necessarily get out of the house a lot, and being able to access other people's writings and stories is really helpful.
And this is Laura. I'm sure that the answer to this is yes, but you've talked about physical disability. Is this course is appropriate for people who may have mental illness or other kinds of, maybe even developmental disabilities?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. I think that it applies to to all of us. It's just different parts of the same system, you know. But yes, absolutely. And I do, what I have done when I taught the miniature version of this in the past was to offer different writing prompts. So, you know, I'd have some general writing prompts, but then specifically, hey, if you're wanting to talk specifically about mental health, here's ones for you. Or if you're a healthy person and you're wanting to explore your relationship with others who are sick, here's a writing prompt specifically for that, so that there's lots of options for folks.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Angie.
And I love your glasses.
Thank you.
Yvette, I'm going to jump right back over to you, if you don't mind, and have you introduce your class for everybody.
Okay, well, I am Yvette Angelique, and my classes are, or my class, it feels like 3 classes in one, because I really wanted to give a tapas menu of ways to look at autobiographical writing, but to do it in a way where there's a professional and scholarly perspective, as well as a marketing yourself and a business perspective. So those were the 2 ways that I wanted to look at the workshops that I'm offering. So my workshop is actually 7 weeks, because it's like 1 week that we really get to know each other through some writing and exercises and some self-explorations. And then there's 2 classes per tapas delight. So we're going to look at scholarly personal narrative, autoethnography, and what I call story branding. And so we're going to have 2 classes that has those 3 topics for 2 classes that have a focus. So in the scholarly personal narrative, it's a wonderful way to look at how you write your professional work, or how you might be working on graduate work or even undergraduate work, and using personal experience, using first-person story, first-person voice, to talk about your experience and connected it with a larger view in terms of some sort of professional or scholarly work. And so to give you an example, I taught this class as an online class with a professional organization called NTL, Institute for Applied Behavioral Science, in which I am a member. And we had quite a few of the people who participated in the course. All of them have graduate degrees or, masters and PhDs. So everybody had to write a thesis, or everybody had to write a dissertation. And yet the work is around personal growth. It's around how to work with individuals and teams to really grow. And so a lot of that involves kind of like storying about where was I, where am I going, where am I heading? And to write that, in the academic sense, took a lot of what people were trying to explain in some of their research. And so the scholarly narrative, scholarly personal narrative, gave a first-person voice to be able to talk about a practitioner's experience as they engage with some of their professional work or some of their research. And folks really enjoyed that particular class. And it's been something I've been teaching at NTL for workshops and so forth for several years. And I think that would be a good thing to offer folks in TLA, because in TLA itself is a profession. And so it will be wonderful to see more TLA folks write about their profession in TLA from not only a personal experience, but from a researched experience. And to understand there's a way they can do that without having to write a thesis.
So, Yvette, if I understand this, so one of the very practical applications of it might be that someone might be working on a scholarly article and be able to integrate their own personal narrative voice in that article in an appropriate way. Is that one of the things that you get from the course? Hello? Did we lose you?
There, so I heard scholarly article. Can you hear me?
Could you try that again? You broke up.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
So did you
Can,
hear my
can you?
question that it has to do with, so a very practical application. So
Right.
you've got
Mhm.
someone who's creating a scholarly article, having an article published in maybe a scholarly journal about their work. And this is a way of
Right.
integrating their
Right.
own personal narrative about their experience in developing what brought them to the work, or what was their experience of doing the work. Is that?
Yes, and also some of the scholarly teachers. So, if a lot of your work was based off what you learned and love about Carl Rogers, then, how did Carl Rogers influence your thinking about the work that you're doing in TLA? And how have you been using those concepts, your own first person story, your own first person journey around that? So, you might integrate, one or two of those folks, and not only just scholar people like Carl Rogers, from a therapy or standpoint or psychology standpoint, but you could also have other artists, the work of, Alice Walker might influence how you think about and frame do things. For me, it's Lucille Clifton, who's a wonderful poet, is my muse and also a great influencer in how I think about, the work that I do with Black and women and women of color. And so part of that piece is that, how do these influences shape your work? And, what are the connections that you make with yourself and them? And to be able to talk about it in first person story and in first person voice.
I want my scholarly article published. It may want to be that I want to talk about in an article who are the writers, the thinkers, the philosophers, the poets, or the writers who have influenced me. And so writing about how other people have influenced my way of working in the world, or my creative projects, or my creativity. So examples, so J.L. Moreno, father of psychodrama.
Right.
I'm a psychodramatist. If I had a reason why I wanted to talk about the way that J.L. Moreno's work influences who I am as a workshop leader, that course, your course is about that.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be that I'm doing this for a scholarly article. So another question I have is, how do you need to be a graduate student to really benefit from this course? And do you need to have even an undergraduate degree? So what's sort of the span of who might be interested in the course, or there's no requirements?
Right. If you're interested in ways to talk about your work in a professional way, you want to give it some professional meat. Okay. This is the course for you. So this will be the way that you could, you could say that I have my article that I either give to a client or a prospective client who's interested in learning about the TLA theory and its application. Well, you could write an article just for the use for your business.
Hey, I just want to interrupt a moment and say Annette Billings is here.
Right.
Annette, we can see you. Hi. How are you, my friend? How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Okay, well, we're so glad that you could join us. Yvette Angelique Hyder-Adams is talking about her class, and Angie talked about hers. Lori's going to share, not Lori, sorry.
Okay,
Lori's going to share some of hers. This is recorded, so what you missed, you can see later. So, yeah, thank you for joining us, and back to you, Yvette.
Yvette, can you just state one more time the name of the course, the actual name of the course?
Sure. Karen helped me get a fancy name to it that would probably attract TLAers. It's called Leverage Your TLA Expertise for Publication, Community Business, and Livelihood.
Okay, so could you just say a couple of things, if you wouldn't mind, about the livelihood aspect of it, the marketing, the business livelihood? How would the course benefit?
Well, that's the story branding component, because the scholarly personal narrative and autoethnography have a lot of similarities. So they kind of go off into the research and the professional writing, if you will. With the branding section of the class, we're looking at how a person who's in the TLA profession or in a profession that they're using themselves as an artist or a healer, how can they talk about themselves in the way that's clear? How do they talk about their business is clear in order to attract, new business, in order to attract customers? What I find with artists in our field is that when you ask them, so what do? You get 2 paragraphs explaining what they do, and the everyday person doesn't know what the heck they're talking about. So this is a way to develop a succinct message, not so much a elevator speech. There's a lot of folks that know how to do that pretty well. It's beyond that. It's really about looking at not only how you talk about it, but how you present your information in marketing materials, on your blogs, on your websites, or your Facebook page. How do you talk about on your LinkedIn page? How do you talk about what you do?
Okay.
So that's what that's about.
This sounds really interesting. I want to ask you one more thing, which has to do with what do you think is the primary way that you're going to present the course? So what could a student expect in terms of the coursework or the experience of the course?
Well, of course, we'll have quite a few writing prompts, but what I like to do is give the participants videos. I like to give them samples to take a look at. I like for them to experience some reading. So I give away a lot of resources for them to use in addition to coming together. Depending upon how many people join the class, we might be formed in like little duos or trios where we give each other feedback on our work offline and then come back together, maybe have some kind of group discussion board. All that's on the discussion board. And again, in terms of managing numbers, I may want to do at least one group phone call, to have people hear each other's physical voices, if you will, and then head on the page on the discussion board to do a lot of work there. So the interaction is on the discussion board. It's also, reading, videos, that kind of thing.
Okay, great.
And prompts, lots of writing prompts.
Prompts. Yeah. Well, let me just quickly check in and see if there are any other questions among us for you about your course, which sounds really fascinating.
I'd like to just step in and also by way of introducing our wonderful Annette Billings. Annette is a poet extraordinaire. You were just cast in, was it a film?
Yes.
You've been doing a lot of theater. You're a retired nurse who has turned your life over to poetry. And Yvette, in relation to what you're talking about with your course, how could a class like that help somebody who's really launching themselves, without meaning to put you on the spot, Annette, but I needed a good example, and there you are, as an artist in this world?
Well, hearing her background in the medical profession and then becoming a poet, I would really urge Annette to really make some connections around that. So, how might she leverage her lifelong experience and profession as a medical professional, and what does that mean as a poet, and where are the connections and where are the synergies, and how might this be of support to audiences that she's trying to reach out to? Because I would need to know more about that in order to kind of give her some guidance. But the idea is for us to really not think of what we did and who we are as artists as two separate things. I mean, Karen knows this. I spent my life as a corporate executive, from the time I was in my 20s until I stopped doing it, 3 years ago. And I worked in banking, and I worked with Fortune 500 companies. And when I would bring poems into our strategic planning session or into a team development process, CEOs would look at me and about faint. But then by the time we got done with how I utilized the poem as a way for them to begin to talk about their lives and to describe ways the business mirrored what was happening in the poem, we were able to have some very frank conversations in which poem became the catalyst for how we had those dialogue. So part of this is if we could get people to understand, that my life as an artist has always been, and how do I bring that into whatever work environment that I'm in today? And so that's the way I would look at it.
Okay.
Sounds really fascinating. Thank you so much. Are there any other burning questions for Yvette at this moment? I want to jump over to you, Laura, if that's okay, Karen.
Sure.
And then we'll have you, because Jenny is not actually on the call. I thought it would be great. We'll go to Laura next, and then we'll talk about Jenny's course. And I'd love to check in and say hello to you, Annette, and have you a chance to give you a chance to talk and share anything you want to. So, Laura, it's a delight to see you again face to face, and you're a previous Let's Talk TLA presenter on Right Livelihood, and I think that was the name of the talk that you gave, something like that. But I know you're a storyteller, and would you share what the name of your course is this time, and then just tell us whatever you think would be helpful to know about your course?
First off, it's great seeing everybody. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you. My class is Creating a Sustainable Story, Self-Care, Meaningful Work, and the Business of Creativity. And it touches upon many of the same things that Yvette, your course touches upon, with thinking about how do we take this work that we are so passionate about and address it as a way to make a living. Or if not a way to make a living, then understand what we want out of it. So this course starts with delving into why we are drawn to the work we're drawn to, setting some goals, and then exploring various tools that we can use to achieve those goals. So journaling, list making, some collage, mind mapping, and a lot of conversations. So there'll be 3 conference calls over the 6 weeks of the class, because what this is really about for me is about fighting isolation. There's this great story about how we are supposed to function as artists and creative people in the world, and the idea is that it's the lone writer struggling in her garret, writing page after page after page. But creativity actually flourishes when we have support. So this is about building support, building a community where you can talk about the difficult issues like money and creative blocks, and how do you have the time to actually write when you have a 2-year-old tugging on your leg. So you know that well.
Yes.
Yep. Talking about those kinds of issues, and I have a whole ton of exercises that we'll be going through that we then get to share and support each other with. Support each other by sharing each other's insight and learning a little bit about each other and about how we each work, how our processes work, each of our individual processes.
So I know that you are a storyteller, performer, and I've seen you perform your stories and weave your remarkable magic spell as a storyteller with an audience. My instinct is I want to ask you about that. What is it like for you in those first few moments before you tell your story in front of an audience?
That's a great question. It's almost an out-of-body experience, which I think anybody who's seen me perform isn't that surprised to hear. But it's also very much about connecting with the audience. And it's about what I love about storytelling, performance storytelling, for me, is that there is no fourth wall. There's no barrier between me and the audience. It is about this intimate thing that we create between ourselves in that moment. So even if I'm telling a story that I've told 100 times, it will be different that time because it is with that audience. The class actually addresses some kinds of things because it's very much about thinking about the work we do as service. And so how do we build connection with the people we serve? And how do we build intimacy and vulnerability without being unsafe in the course of our work? Because that is what I do as a performer. My performances, even if I'm talking to 3,000 people, there is vulnerability and there's intimacy, even if the story is just a funny folktale. But the audience, and that might be your audience as a writer, it might be my audience as a performer or as a consultant, needs to feel that they have connection to you and to the work. And so that's what all of my performance is about. That's And that's why it's kind of an out-of-body experience, because I'm constantly attending to what's going on around me at the same time that these words are channeling out of me.
And so that's how it is now. Was it always that way for you? Because there was a time before this really was your profession. I know that you have moved into really having this be your actual profession, and all the risks and hard work as a result of that. Could you just share a tiny tidbit about what it was like for you at the beginning before?
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely petrifying. And frankly, it still is sometimes. Standing up to talk in front of people, every single time I have to remind myself to take some deep breaths, do the rituals that help center me. That's part of what I hope to help people in this course find as well, to go to the places that scare them and figure out where the strength is there. So as a performer, every single time there's fear. And in the beginning, it was much scarier. What has happened now is I've learned to trust the audience and to trust myself and to trust the story. But it has not been an easy journey, and I'm sure there will be days when it will continue to be extraordinarily difficult. But that's what being an artist is about. That's what being someone who works with transformational language is about. It's about saying, well, that was really hard and kind of sucked, but I'm going to try it again. And then that faith that the next time you will at least take some of what you learned this time forward with you.
How important has it been for you, Laura, to have community and build community? And do you feel like you have built a sustainable community? And I guess what's the most challenging thing to do in doing that?
It is immensely important for me. It is also immensely important for me that I have a lot of alone time. I find that creation for me comes out of this dance between spending time with my fellows, whatever that may be, and spending alone time, and then bringing what I discover in the alone time to the time with my community, and the time with my community back to the alone time. Most of the time I feel like I have a sustainable community. Sometimes I do not. It is a constant work in progress. We as human beings, whether or not you're an artist, there's a stunning sunset happening over there. That's what I keep looking at. Whether you are an artist, a writer, a poet, someone who aspires for those things, it is always, life is a work in progress. So the tools that worked for me 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 months ago may not be the tools that are working now. And I have to be open to trying new tools all the time. And with this class, what I'm hoping is to give people a whole bunch of tools, and some of them will stick and some of them will not. There will be exercises that a given person in the class will think, wow, that was the dumbest thing I've ever done, whereas somebody else will think, this is it. This is the thing that's helping me now. It's about having a good toolbox. And so while I may not always feel like my community is as rich and sustaining as I want it to be, it's then my job to go back to my toolbox and try something else.
I also think when you give people those kinds of tools, you're also showing us all how to forge our own new tools and how to find what does work for us. I also just wanted to say I'm so struck looking at everybody's faces that everybody on this call is a performer of some sort. Yvette does incredible amounts of public speaking and consulting and coaching, and Angie is a performer and a writer, and obviously Annette, you are a performer and a writer, and Kelly, as a playwright, you're also and a poet and somebody who cares in many levels. So I'm just really struck as you're speaking, Laura, how much it kind of goes to the core of what so many of us are working with. How do we put ourselves out there? How do we keep alive that very vulnerable and open space that we need to do this work? How do we make community? How do we do this sustainably? And I really liked what you said about how things change over time.
Mm-hmm. And we need to take care of ourselves through all of that. That's what a big part of this course is about remembering to do that, some kind of self-care, and figuring out what happens to be what works this week for self-care. Might not work next.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Laura. That was really wonderful.
Thank you.
Let me check in with you if I could, Annette. Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Would you, thanks for joining us. Would you like to just share for a couple of minutes about your work in TLA or what connects you with our community of Transformative Language Arts?
Yes, I was a registered nurse for almost 4 decades and took the leap of doing early retirement to follow my deepest love, which was to write. So I've been writing for about a year and a half, and last year I was blessed to be able to attend the TLA conference in Kansas City, and got very connected with the mission and the kinds of things it teaches us in order to communicate better. Can you hear me okay?
You're a little choppy.
The audio seems to be a little bit choppy there, but.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I was honored to be able to attend the TLA conference in Kansas City last year and just came away with such a feeling of growth after that. And I've just been very committed to sharing my work, being a good steward of the kinds of things I've been able to do. I was very glad to hear from Yvette, I believe it was, to take my nursing experience forward with me and not necessarily see myself as past nurse and now present poet, to actually bring that nurse forward with me.
And I was going to add that Annette was actually one of our featured Fringe Festival performers. And her book, A Net Full of Hope, is a marvelous collection. And you've done dozens and dozens of readings and workshops for all kinds of communities. And it's an inspiration to kind of track what you're doing in the world. So.
Thank you. It's my life's work now. So I hope to, I will remain committed to doing it the best I can. I really will.
Well, your audience is fortunate to have you, Annette.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. Okay, you were going to talk about Jenny's course, Karen.
Yes, Jenny Patterson had something come up today and could not make it, but I just really wanted to share the powerful class she's doing. I also want to say there are some scholarships available for her class and also for Angie's class. We're trying to get to the point that we can offer more scholarships for more classes, but for right now, we particularly looked at ways to lift those classes up because they may particularly attract people who are in situations where they don't have as much income. So if you are interested, please be in touch. Jenny's class is called Wound Dwelling, Writing the Survivor Bodies or Body. And I think her description, if I just read you this paragraph, says quite a bit. She's an incredible writer, activist, and healer. And she writes, what is the physicality of a wound? What kinds of loss feels nearly impossible to come back from? What kind of life settles into our bones if we don't take the time to grieve these losses? Can we dive into the wound, the loss, excavate and unearth it? We will focus on surviving and survivorhood, what it looks and feels like to live beyond traumatic experience. The dominant narratives about the survivor body, often pathologized as disembodied, disassociated, and unwell, will be turned on their heads. We can never actually leave our bodies, try as hard as we might, and as wise as we are in our reasons for trying, and therefore always are already embodied. Too often survivors that are often writers are told not to dwell in the trauma, that writing from personal and traumatic experience isn't legitimate. I don't believe that to be true, and I am regularly heartened and inspired by the writing people do while diving into the wound. Jenny just graduated from the Goddard Masters in TLA program, and at the same time, he also just had published an award-winning anthology. It's one of the best-selling anthologies of its kind, and it's called Queering Sexual Violence, Radical Voices from Within the Anti-Sexual Movement. And, even in writing about that, she asked a lot of questions, like in relation to that book, and I think it resonates with this class. She asked in one interview, so what is healing when trauma is ancestral or frequent or deeply rooted in systems bigger than individuals? What can healing look and feel like outside the dominant narratives of medicalization and pathologization? What are the barriers and who are the gatekeepers making sustainable healing difficult? What needs to be overcome in order to create more welcoming and effective healing spaces? Knowing Jenny, what I see in her is that she is extraordinarily gifted at making and holding brave spaces where people can connect with their own innate wisdom and resilience and ways through, find their own best answers. She has a background in organizational fundraising, being a rape crisis counselor. She's worked in anti-violence work for years as an activist. She has an extensive background as a writer, and she openly identifies as queer and a survivor of multiple forms of violence. And she's also a healer. She makes and sells all kinds of herbal tinctures and products and works with people one-on-one fairly extensively in New York City where she lives. So she kind of brings to us this experience of marrying social change and deep healing, embodiment, and language. And one other thing I'll share about her is she does the most extraordinary embroidery, which she also sees as a form of healing, and just mind-blowing, very detailed embroidery that really, even words and phrases that has to do with turning inside out unhelpful narratives about healing. So I think it's a really exciting class, and I'm so glad that she'll be a part of us.
Wonderful. Does anybody have any questions for Karen about Jenny's class?
This is Yvette speaking again, and I really am happy to hear about this class. I love the string of words like disembody and dis words, because I think language is so powerful. When she talks about really turning those words on its head to really give it a different view. So just this notion of really claiming the language around people's individual healings from the different traumas that they're facing feels so important. So, given that context, I guess I'm wondering, and maybe and can share more about her experience, when participants are engaged in her class, what are the kinds of revelations they have walked away with? Have they walked with making meaning out of their experience? What type of outcomes have some of her students experienced as a result of her work?
Well, I haven't been a part of her class per se, but one thing that I know that she focuses on, which I think is extraordinarily important, is that a lot of the mythology in our culture, and I also want to say, a lot of what I'm saying also speaks directly to what Angie's doing with very embodied writing and arts. And Angie, in your performance and writing, you've taken this very, very far and deeply too. But turning upside down these mythologies about what healing is and when healing should be finished by. And, particularly in healing, in queering sexual violence, the anthology she edited, she was looking at how queer communities have very little space to explore and name for themselves what it means to find healing kind of outside the dominant paradigm. And so she also looks at the dangers of how things get pathologized and labeled and put away. and how through the arts and through learning to build kind of greater trust in ourselves and our own innate strength that we can grow, we can find ways to rename and kind of create new stories, new mythologies that better reflect what healing is. And I'd like to toss this back to Angie, because I know you do similar work, and just kind of see what comes to you to share in this regard.
Oh, well, I was just thinking about, I'm friends with Jenny, and just talking about revelations that someone might have in the class, and then what you were saying, I was thinking about almost that it's not so much about the revelation, it's about the process that you're going through. and the fact that we're always unraveling those things, and we're always in the process of turning those narratives over and creating new stories for ourselves. And I think that, at least for me, some of my work that I do and the work that I try to do with people, and I think just from the things that I've seen from Jenny as well, is that a lot of it is the starting of that process or the continuing of that process, even more so than it might be, I don't know, finding something necessarily, but just that that delving in really deeply into that, speaking your truth. And I know that Jenny is really big about that, about being really vulnerable with your truth and finding the healing in that. And that's, should I share that?
Yeah, and I know your work also speaks a lot to what does it mean to be a body.
Right.
I am going to interrupt for a moment and just say that I think it's a good time to move into our poetry open mic. And I wanted to check in and see who among us has brought a poem or something brief to share for this part of our program.
This is Annette, and I have one.
Excellent.
Good.
And this is Laura, and I have one.
Excellent.
And this is Angie, and I can have one.
Like that, yes.
Karen, I could have one too. I will pull one out.
Excellent. This is Kelly. I could have one too. Okay, excellent. Well, why don't we start with, and Yvette, am I?
Yes, I'm here, and I could have one as well.
Great. Everybody, let's take a moment and get your thing that you could have ready. Annette, how about kicking us off? Would you be open to are you ready to go first?
Yes, I could do that.
Okay.
Are you hearing me okay, or do I need to put the mic a little closer?
Well, is there a way to put the mic a tiny bit closer but us not lose your face?
I'm on my phone, so probably I'll just have you listen because it'll
okay.
change and the name of this poem is Apples, Peaches, Pears, and Plums. There is an orchard in my soul where poems fall from me like fruit, self-contained testimonials every season I have lived. Now still hard and green, blown too soon from me by an ill wind. Others fall lush and sweet, just right for some mouth to recite. Heart lay rotting on the ground, worm-ridden and awaiting validation from a harvester who never comes. And the rest came embryonic, a little more than a blossom's promise. I'll take thee, you say, as you bruise my best and scarred my worst, for I am absorbed in gathering them all. to acknowledge you, fool that you are, with seeds that grow them solely for your consumption. All done.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's lovely. Thank you.
Lovely delivery.
I love the ending, and of course, the way you read always gives me chills.
It does, yeah.
Very
Thank you
nice.
for going first.
Yes.
Would you be open to going next?
Did you call me? Yes, I'd be happy to. Okay, so this is
Excuse me, 1 second. Does someone have a dog barking?
it's my neighbor's dogs. I can close the window if you like.
Well, I want to hear you. So,
Give me just a sec. Hang on. All right. We'll see if that helps. Is that a little better?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so before I read this to you, 2 pieces of information for you to have. One, I used to write poetry and then didn't for many years, and I'm finding myself writing poetry again. So this feels very vulnerable reading it to you. So thank you for being such wonderful, loving, accepting listeners. The second thing that you need to know, if you do not already know, is does everybody here know who Baba Yaga is? Does anyone need to know? Baba Yaga is a character out of Russian folklore. She is a witch and often quite terrible. She lives in a house that runs around on chicken legs, and she's ugly, the way all witches are, but because it's Slavic folklore, she is not always cruel. If you approach her the right way, she might help you. But she is, the most famous story with her, she ends up helping the heroine by giving her light to find her way out of the wood, but the light shines out of the eye sockets of a skull that she carries on a stick, which is a really kind of nice piece of Baba Yaga imagery. So knowing that, this poem will make more sense.
Okay.
Oh, and she, well, I'll let you have some, you can have some things you don't know. How many hundreds of lucky chicken claws, magic potions, and skull lanterns did it take? She didn't know. She had lost count by the time she had enough. But there it was, enough. A place for ladies like us, she said. For those of us who don't fit in and frighten the children, whether we mean to or not. Mostly it's not, but no one cares about that these days. They hunger only for the fear. It doesn't matter what we do. It only matters what we look like. So a place where the hiss of Medusa's hair is only another sound amongst the chatter, barely more than a hairdryer's hum, where finally someone will tend to the wicked witch's poor feet, mangled by those red, burning shoes, and a place where the mirrors always tell us we are the fairest, true or not. She runs her gnarled fingers through her own steel-gray locks, matted and foul. A beetle, or is it an acorn, falls to the floor. I used to think I could be lovely, but no one saw me behind my chicken-legged house, so I gave up on beauty and chose power instead. I won't call it a parlor or salon, but maybe a haven for the overlooked, the cursed, the lame. Our lives are so long and our hearts so great. We don't ask for happily ever after. Is it too much to wish to be seen and loved for the duration of a manicure and a wax?
Wow, it's wonderful.
Nice. Nice.
Images.
Nice surprise ending.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Excuse me, 1 second.
Yes.
So
Very-
thank you for giving me a place to be brave.
That was great.
Yeah.
Oh,
Honoring us.
This is such a great part of our evening.
yes.
So good to hear you on this level. Just
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Who would like to go next?
This is Yvette. I'll go.
Good.
I'm going to read a piece that was a prompt from one of my writing classes. So not exactly a poem, but I think it'll just give a different kind of levity. And the prompt was basically a letter of invitation. Okay. And it goes, "Dear, dearest friend, it is not often one gets to throw a last day on earth party. But hey, here we are. Did you see the article in the Washington Post on Sunday? It's all over CNN. Turns out global warming is real. And our asses will fry to a crisp next Thursday at 4:17 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Mm-hmm.
WTF, I thought. So hell, let's have a barbecue. Having the last freaking barbecue in your life deserves a spontaneous menu. So I went to BJ's with an oversized cooler and just grabbed what I saw on the end caps. I loaded the cart up with jumbo shrimp, some tiny big pops, and a case of dumb beer promising to be the wiser. Nutrition and calorie counting don't matter right now. Fatten up now because in a few days, no one will give a shit about getting to a size 10 jeans. You can count on everything being fried, smothered in gravy, and extra butter. Dear friend, please bring to an dear friend, please feel free to bring an enemy. Yes, you heard me right, an enemy. Pick someone you wanted to tell to kiss my ass but never had the guts to say. Frenemy is what I hear that you call them. Yeah, loving all over your family and friends, that's just so passe at this point. That's what you want to do when you get scared. But wouldn't it just be juicy hard to rotisserie some jerk chicken head, release some of the shit you've probably politely held inside for the last 20 years? You know what I mean, right? Be the selfish bastard you never imagined, but certainly lived up to. I hear the sun is going to fall hard on us, like a fire flake nor'easter. Remember being buried under 48 inches of snow back in '94? Yeah, friend, remember that? You got me good when you stole that big sales deal from me when I couldn't get out of my iced driveway. I can't wait to see you at my party, friend. I know how you love a good story, the smell of Jack Daniel's barbecue sauce. Remember the time you spilled a tray of barbecue wings on me? That same sauce at TGI Fridays? Yeah, it was after work. The meeting that the big boss threw for the team. Remember how I wore my best white suit? I was so pissed at you. But hey, I heard it was you who got the leadership team meeting changed to that trashy bar. I never believed it though. You knew how much I hated that bar. You remember that, friend. Thank goodness for club soda, right? Well, anyway, I hope you say yes, my friend, because this party has your name written all over it.
That's great. That's great. I love that.
Yeah, I love all the humor in it.
That's fun.
Also, I love that you have a specific date and time for when our asses are all going to fry.
Yeah. Global warming is real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Carrie or Angie. Either one of you want to go next? Karen or Angie?
Yeah, I can. Well, like, man, mine's really depressing following that. Okay. I will read one of them about being sick, since that's what my class is about. So this one is called Chronology of Breaking. Says, my lover says, let it go. They stroke my hair and rub my shoulders, bringing me back to childhood. Shh, let it go. But I know that my tears are embers held under sternum, and that if I cry, I may ignite, burning until I crumble into ash. They sink teeth into flesh, biting into the core of me. Let it go, they say. I collapse on the bathroom floor, my body heaving with silent sobs. I do not burst into flame when the tears come, but I've never asked my spouse if I tasted like smoke or like fear. They, like me, have tasted both. Where do I even start this story, I ask my lover. They watch me open my mouth to speak, only to be swallowed by the silence that comes from pain of old wounds ripping open, blood spilling in place of words. What does it mean to give a part of ourselves when we've already had so much taken? I don't know how to navigate the broken pieces, I tell my lover. They watch me as if I am gathering glass, words and memories slashing, cutting hands and heart. I stand with palms full of shards I can't put back together. What does it mean to give a part of ourselves when we can't even find all the pieces? Sometimes we hold our breath so long we forget how it feels to let it go. My lover places palm to chest, places face to neck, into places I didn't even know I was hurting. They whisper, breathe, just breathe, and tentatively I do.
Mm.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
Very brave.
Thanks,
Thank
Angie.
you.
Thanks.
Such nice description. I like the stroking of the hair and tears. Yeah.
And the places you didn't know you were broken. I loved that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The juxtaposition between, you know, how vivid the pain is and yet the here and now of what they are saying to you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that.
Karen, sorry, do you want to go next?
Sure. Let's see where it just went. This is, I have a new book in the works for many years, and this poem is called The Thread. And I should say the whole book is about time. So, The Thread. Time, T-I-M-E. Can you all hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
The Thread, T-H-R-E-A-D. My mother's singing Laura, 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 the Irish lullaby, even though we were Brooklyn Jews. The vacuum on the shag carpet, the singular birch shaking over the hapless windowsill, the humming refrigerator, the chants encasing me in each swayed note as I wrapped my thin arms around my cold chest in the cavernous synagogue. The creak of the swing as I turn horizontal, defying gravity in the static of the transistor radio. The loud slap of the bass notes of the body that make bruises, then the slow breath of forgiveness, pacing until the danger is gone. All the possibilities in each library novel about a girl, afraid at the start, but about to do something to swirl the pond of her life. The first kiss in the back of the school bus broken by applause. The sound of thunder, an interior roar like hunger. The old staccato of my father's anger before it dissolved into the tenderness of defeat. The way some mornings rev up like motorcycle, coming point blank toward us. The exhaling speed of rivers starving for new ground, or betrayed by sudden shorelines that break the water into remembering willows. Like tires on wet pavement, downhill at dawn, the happy rhythm of the subway rocking my spine in and out of alignment with the dark as we tunneled through water back to air, the miracle of one rushing animal carrying us all, this buzzing body ferrying millions of cells into space.
Oh, lovely.
That's lovely, lovely, lovely.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me.
I really love how it opens, you know, being in the home and the vacuum cleaner and the humming in the refrigerator and just that everyday, you know,
Yeah.
entering, you know, the home. I was there. It was like a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I was there.
Connecting with sounds. So, thank you.
Can you
So,
give me the
Kelly,
last
do you
line
have a
again? Can you give me the last line again? I didn't hear it clearly.
Oh, let's see. Hold on a moment. One moment, please. Okay. Well, it's the happy rhythm of the subway rocking my spine in and out of alignment with the dark as we tunneled through water back to air. The miracle of one rushing animal carrying us all. This buzzing body ferrying millions of cells with sound.
Mm.
Good stuff.
Thanks. So, Kelly, do you have a poem you'd like to share?
I do. I will share one that is part of a collection that is about my father's Alzheimer's. And it's called Night Rhymes. Night Rhymes. We stick in our tongues and pull out our thumbs in the coach of the king, like Mario donuts when a frightened spider sits down beside no pretty little girls who deserve peas, porridge cold in the pot, in the shoe. What do so many children do? For the light of the silvery moon king is counting his house, while his quite contrary is running the town. Mouse could eat no sprat. Are all the children in their beds? For the clock struck, and the moon fell, and the king sang a pocket full. Will his wife smell the fee-fi-fo-fum? Grind his bones, make my bread. Little lamb, to last me all my home, send down the hill my poor wife, lick my broke crown. Do you know the muffin man who lives on a pail of water?
Mm. Mm. Mm.
I love the way you spin together tales there.
Yeah.
I love that, Kelly. That is so powerful.
Yeah.
And to hear it as a part of a collection from Alzheimer's, it's almost, I imagine, maybe what stories are, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
how they circuit in and out, you know, get jumbled up. And that was so powerful.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Yep. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you all. These were all great.
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what a night. What a night. I love ending this way too, you know, just really steeped in each other's deep emotional risk-taking and sharing and beautiful transformative language. So we've really had an amazing evening.
Yes.
I really can't thank you all enough for coming and talking about your fascinating courses. We've recorded this now. To probably send it over to Terry tomorrow to get posted up on Facebook. I've taken some screenshots of faces, and we'll see if we can get those posted too. So I'm really I just wish you all luck with your wonderful fall classes, and thanks for your generosity and time tonight in sharing so deeply about your work and your words.
And thank you for facilitating it so beautifully and making it so welcoming.
This, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody who came.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you. Thank you, everybody. So I'm going to say goodnight and stop recording.
All right.
See you again soon.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.